Thank you. So welcome to Gareth. The Raid came out yesterday. I don't know if any of you have seen it yet. It's absolutely fantastic. If not, go and see it. So first of all, how did it come about? Where did the idea come from? What's your background? Like, how did it all start off?
Yeah, that's a pretty big question. I was based in Wales all the way up until I was 27. And basically, I wanted to be in the film industry here in UK, but I didn't actually do enough to get noticed. And my wife, who's Indonesian Japanese, she noticed that I was kind of slipping back into my 9 to 5, and so she put in a call and got me work on a documentary out in Indonesia. And that documentary was all about pencak silat. Now, I've been a big fan of watching Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee ever since I was a kid. So I knew all about, like, Kung Fu, Muay Thai, Karate, Aikido, Judo, everything else.
Yeah.
But I'd never seen silat before. And what I saw out there, I just really wanted to be able to sort of show that to my friends that I used to watch Kung Fu movies with.
Right.
But I couldn't find films that would kind of represent silat in a true form. Like, there were a lot of different movies, like Barry Primo movies like The Warrior that came out, that like Jaka Sambung. These were films that incorporated little bits of silat, but it was mostly a mix of karate in there and some mysticism.
Yeah.
And so what I wanted to see was like something that was pure silat. And through the process of making that documentary, I not only found like a choreography team that I knew I could use, but I found like traditions and cultures that I could incorporate into my first film, Merantau. But then also I met Iko,
Yeah.
who happens to be an absolute maniac when it comes to silat. So, yeah.
Right. So can you tell us, obviously it only came out yesterday, so I don't know if many people will have seen it, so can you tell us the general plot of the film and what goes down in it?
Okay, so the storyline for The Raid is basically about an Indonesian SWAT team that are going to raid a building which is owned by a drug baron. And the idea is that he's owned this building and no cops have gone near it for over 10 years.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, he's been renting out rooms to every criminal and thug that wants to keep their head down. So when the SWAT team work their way up, once they reach the 6th floor, suddenly they get spotted. And then the baron kind of locks the entire building down. And suddenly the cops are left having to fight their way out to survive. So he sends out a call saying, whoever helps kill off the cops can stay there rent-free.
Yeah.
So then it turns into sort of survival horror mode, but mixed with martial arts action then.
Right. And how the shoot, obviously it's a really kind of intricate film, the fights are really intricate. How long did the shoot take, and was it really difficult to shoot? Or?
Yeah, the shoot lasted about 72 days, roughly. And that tends to be like a requirement when it comes to martial arts films. We spend a long time shooting all of the fights. Each fight is around about 3 to 4, sometimes 5 days.
Yeah.
The final fight, which was about 6 minutes of just pure hand-to-hand fighting,
Yeah.
we had 8 days total to shoot that one then. I wanted 12 to 15, but I got
Right.
given 8. So we ended up shooting long days, long hours, and I think the shortest day of filming was around about 16 to 17 hours. Longest day was about 26.
Yeah.
So fun and games on the shoot, yeah.
And the star, Iko, how did you meet him, and where's he come from? Like, what's his background?
Well, Iko I met through the documentary. Before I met him, he was a delivery guy for a phone company.
Right.
And so he would drive between offices and deliver documents and stuff.
Yeah.
But he did silat on the weekends, and
Right.
he represented Indonesia nationally and at international demonstrations. But he wasn't sort of known for it. He wasn't famous for it. And that was how I met him. But all of these guys, they come from different walks of life. So, Yayan, who plays Mad Dog in the film, he was a guy who taught silat to the military. He taught silat to security guards and all
Right.
these different people. And we have this other guy, Godfred, who plays the Machete Gang leader. And he has these big bug eyes and he's scary as shit to look at. But in reality, he's an architect. And he's a really good architect too.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
So when he's not killing people, he builds hospitals.
And how did you go about choreographing the fights? Because obviously they're really intricate, and like you said, the final fight scene is just incredible.
I usually, like, in the scripting stage, there's not much detail in terms of the fights. I'll just give a sense of the location, the opponent, the situation, the tone of the fight.
Yeah.
And then we workshop it then, the three of us.
Right.
So it's me, Iko, and Yayan.
Yeah.
And we'll spend about 3 months before we even start pre-production, and we'll design every single fight. So we'll figure out every punch, every kick, every block, every throw.
Yeah.
And we'll make a video storyboard then as well to go along with that. So we actually work out every edit and every camera movement, so that
Right.
it's kind of like I'm a big fan of the 80s, 90s Hong Kong action cinema.
Yeah.
And the great thing about Jackie Chan's work was that thing of every shot feels like it's a jigsaw piece. So it feels like it's been designed specifically to show off that piece of choreography.
Yeah.
And you know, the idea is like if we're going to spend like 3 months working on designing these fights,
Yeah.
I don't want to hide it. I don't want to just shoot some random footage that's quick cut and close-ups,
Right.
and then randomly edit it together. I want to
Yeah.
actually show that we put in that work then. So.
Yeah, yeah. And there's obviously buzz about a sequel.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that. How far into production is that? And
The sequel we're going to start shooting in January. I'm working on the script now. I'm finishing the script up. I got about 5% left to write. So
Right.
next week I should be done. But I've been saying next week to our producers for about 4 months now. So,
Yeah.
but next week for sure I'll be done.
Yeah.
Allegedly. But we're going to start pre-production in September and then start shooting in January. But it's a much bigger shoot this time because the scope of the project is much bigger.
Right.
So we had 2.5 to 3 months on the raid, but for the sequel we're going to shoot for 5 months.
Wow.
So we got a lot of big stunt set pieces.
Yeah.
The most stress-inducing set piece that we can think of so far, we have a 4-on-1 fight with Eco, but inside a moving car.
Wow.
So once we figure out how to do that without killing anyone, then we'll start shooting then. So.
Did you always intend this for a kind of big international audience? I mean, obviously foreign language films, especially in the States, sometimes don't work as well.
The nature of like the film industry in Indonesia, in terms of the box office reports, for the last 2 or 3 years, it's been on such a decline that you kind of almost have to, if you're going to make a film like this at that budget level, even though to every other country in the world it's like a low budget film,
Right.
in Indonesia it's considered a high budget film.
Yeah.
And once you kind of play around with that territory, you have to sell internationally.
Yeah.
Now we had no idea that it was gonna go the way it had on this one. We anticipated that we do theatrical at home and then DVD and Blu-ray everywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we made the film just for ourselves. Like we didn't kind of make it thinking, I hope every single person and every single demographic can like this film. We can't do films like that. As soon as we start doing that, we're not making it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And then I stop being the right person to make that.
Right.
So I made this film in the hope that there are a bunch of other people out there that quite like the idea of seeing people get shot at. So yeah.
Okay, so we've got a couple of questions from Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah.
So the first one is from Ribs2312 on Twitter, who says, "Did you spend a lot of time configuring the mise-en-scène for meaning, or did you just use shots that look cool?"
A bit of both. When we design like the shots, I mean, everything comes from every single shot comes from a place of evoking a feeling, whether it's to do with the excitement of what you're looking at, or building tension and suspense. So yeah, a lot of thought went into some scenes, and then other scenes you're like, okay, what's a cool idea?
Yeah.
Like we had one shot where Eco cuts a hole in the floor and then drops down through the hole.
Right.
And our idea was that we wanted to kind of have this style of shooting where you feel like it's a documentary, so like a semi-documentary feel.
Yeah.
So we figured if Eco's going to jump through that hole, the camera's going to go in with him.
Right.
And we didn't have like a decent sized budget in order to have proper rigging to do that shot.
Yeah.
So the only way we could do it is we used like a fig rig, which is the steering wheel that Mike Figgis designed, right, for time code.
Right.
And we used that, and we put the camera on there. And I had one camera guy up on the top floor, and he had a wire on his back, and the camera had a wire on it for reasons you'll find out soon. And when Eco dropped down through the hole, our camera guy fell onto the floor and pushed half of his body through the floor. And then he twisted the camera around. Now down below we have a second camera guy, and he stood on a table, and he's just watching, waiting. So when that camera comes down, he takes hold of it and then carries on operating it. So it looks like it's one full movement then.
Yeah.
And it is one full movement, but without rigging. So
Yeah. Okay, and this one from Owls Anime Annex on Twitter. If you could cast any classic action star, who would it be? And could you also pop Jason Statham in too?
Actually, I'm a big fan of Jason Statham's, actually. I think Crank and Crank 2 are really fucking fun to watch.
Yeah.
I think in terms of like a classic action star, it's a weird one to me because I grew up, the immediate answer would be Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
But then I grew up watching his films so much and I idolized him so much. I think that if I ever got to work with him, I'd just be awestruck. I wouldn't be able to direct at all.
Yeah.
So what I'd love to be able to do is just sit there and watch him work,
Right.
and see how he directs, and sort of pick up some tips off him then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd be too awestruck with some of the heroes of mine. So yeah.
And Mike Watkins from Facebook says, how can you top the raid, and do you know that you've ruined fluorescent lights for everyone?
I've ruined what?
Fluorescent lights for everyone.
Okay, that's a spoiler. We can't say that. We're in this position where when I was talking to Eco about it, because Eco was saying, like, how are we going to approach the second one now? Because there's added pressure, because now people we've lost the surprise factor.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but I've always said to him that we just got to do it the way that we did the first one. Just do the film that we want to make, and hopefully you guys will enjoy the sequel as much as you enjoy the first one.
Yeah.
And and you're not disappointed by what we do, and we just got to keep pushing and pushing. Our remit after we did Maranta was to make sure that the action had to be 10 steps bigger, 10 steps better than what we did previously.
Yeah.
And the same applies for the Raid and the Raid sequel.
Yeah.
The next one has to be 10 steps bigger, 10 steps better.
Yeah,
so we got some ideas, so we'll figure something out.